Good evening. It is Monday, November 14th, and I'm calling the EDA meeting to order. Looking for a motion to adopt this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Francis.
Second.
Second by Cahill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. First item of business this evening is downtown development update, and I will turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Commissioners. Chris and I had been talking about just coming back to you. We were hoping to have an update relating to downtown redevelopment, but we don't have an update, and so there's a deadline we understand on November 15th, which is tomorrow, and the developer that we had communicated with last week was still working on their investment group, trying to kind of figure out if they could still do the same deal that they had written the original pro forma for prior to interest rates going up by double. And so they're still looking at that, but just kind of preemptively, we thought it would be prudent to just come back to the EDA now instead of waiting until December to talk about a couple of aspects of just downtown redevelopment in general, so that we might be able to do some things here still before the end of the year without having to necessarily wait. So we want to talk about two things. One relates to establishment and certification of the 5210 Main Street building as a substandard building for the purposes of tax increment financing. As many of the council know, actually the council knows because it's the council, the EDA members might not, that the city obviously has been looking at the condition of that building, and depending on what happens with ultimately the redevelopment project, it's been identified that we would have to certify that building substandard for the purposes of a tax increment financing redevelopment district. And so we had looked at potentially just trying to get authorization to do that, assuming that we could get permission to do the investigation of the building, which really is just kind of a visual inspection. I think we've talked about it before. Tax increment financing has some requirements related to certification of the tax increment financing district. One of those things is a finding needs to be made that the buildings that are being counted towards the district, a certain percentage of those buildings are considered or deemed substandard by way of a statutory definition of substandard that relates specifically to tax increment financing. Substandard not in the sense of any other measure, but just for the purposes of tax increment. So we've done this before. Once you do that, once you do that certification of the building, you have 3 years to utilize that in terms of creating a tax increment financing district. And we've talked about in the past certifications that we've done. Once that 3-year window is gone, then you'd either have to recertify the building, or in the case that we had previously, the building was torn down, and that then gives you 3 years of 3 more years essentially of being able to utilize the findings of that report for a substandard building for the purpose of creating tax increment financing district. I had reached out to, there's only a couple people who do this type of certification commonly, right? And in the past, we used a person who's now retired. They were an old building official who did it for a lot of cities out in the western side. Currently, one of the companies that's doing it is an architecture firm, which makes sense because they have to make findings related to the building itself. But LHB Architects does it. We know in talking to a couple of the finance folks, including Northland, this is a group they've used. So we've talked to Mike with LHB before. Prior to us writing this memo, I had reached out to him. He was on vacation, but he did get back to me late Friday afternoon with a proposal for $3,900. So I had put in the memo 5,000 to 7,500, which is just what I had seen on a similar project over in Victoria a couple months ago. I think this one's just a little bit smaller scope, so it's 3,900. That's a not to exceed number that he gave me in a written proposal. But I wanted to just talk to EDA, see if there is any feelings one way or another towards this. If we could get kind of a approval subject to the project not moving forward, or give us a little bit of leeway, it would just save us the ability to kind of come back to EDA. We'd be able to kind of just move on that one piece. And so we wanted to at least just bring this to council for the discussion purpose. And then the other piece of that, and I can either yield and talk about that specifically, the other piece of the downtown we wanted to talk about is just in general, a what if this developer doesn't move forward with the project that's at hand. Staff wanted to just kind of have a high level gut check discussion with the EDA council to say, is the project that we have now a ton of detail on the redevelopment project, which would be a mixed use apartment building with the city hall, is that the project that we're comfortable with going after? And if so, we would like to put together some marketing information and send something out to a broader, kind of cast a wider net of the development world to see if that project is viable from anybody else. But part of the reason we're asking and talking about it is we've got a ton of information on this project. We have pretty good numbers. We understand a lot of the aspects of the environmental now. We understand the MnDOT piece. We understand the city hall piece better than we did. And so if we would go out and try to solicit some other developers, we could put together, I think, some pretty specific information about the site in a kind of it'd be kind of an RFP, kind of an RFQ combination, where we would handpick 15, 20 development groups that we've talked to. Now, I will say that there's at least 2, maybe 3 groups that are kind of in the wings out there that have kicked tires on this project and are in contact with me fairly regularly saying what's going on. And so they have interest in a project, maybe not the exact project, but they have interest in a similar project. For example, one group I've talked to has a ton of interest in a project that would include an affordable piece. But very similar, just it would include an affordable piece. So we just want to have that. I mean, it's a good time to come back rather than write a memo, and we haven't met in a while because we've been kind of on hold while the developer's trying to figure out their side. And we're hearing this in a lot of places, though, this interest rate, right? They were writing pro formas with a 4%, and now you're going to 6 3/4 in 3 to 4 months' time, and it's just blowing up their returns. It's not that the deals can't be done, but a lot of times what it's requiring, and in this case, I think this is what this group is trying to figure out. It's requiring a bigger downstroke on their end, which they've got to have either more investors or the investment group that they had put together has to come up with more money for less return, right? And so I know we're seeing this in a couple other deals that I'm working on, kind of very similar type deals, is this interest rate is just kind of shaking everything up, and then people still don't know what construction costs are doing. Are they going to offset some of that because they're going to start coming down? Are they going to stay the same? Are they going to go up? And so I think a lot of people are just trying to tread water and see what happens before they make a decision on this. But so those are 2 of the pieces that we thought would just be good to have conversation, kind of see what's everybody's feelings, just make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. So
It's helpful.
You willing to take a question or two?
Oh, yeah. Please.
This certification you speak about in this narrative here, is this the same certification that you estimated would be $10,000 back in September's packet?
Yeah, it's a piece of the 10.
Okay, it is.
So yeah, so there's a couple pieces that go into play. This is just a building investigation and certification, not a TIF district finding of qualification, if you want to call it that. So in order to establish a TIF district, we have to, with certainty, be able to say that, in order to establish a redevelopment, that a certain percentage of the ground is covered with kind of existing development or existing, and then a certain percentage of the buildings meet substandard building requirements. When we had looked at that TIF district previously, one of the other buildings that we'd have to certify in almost any of those kind of 3 or 4 scenarios, if you remember them, we had kind of A, B, C, D. The library was going to need to be included at some point because we'd have to make a finding on that building because we need the coverage piece of that building to get to our base percentage of site coverage.
We couldn't go across the street?
That was one of the scenarios also, but I
Okay.
think all of them included the library and then maybe that building across the street as well.
Okay, so if we're separating out, compartmentalizing the 5210, is it?
Yeah.
And we know that certification starts a clock or starts a window. What is the advantage of starting that clock today? And then, of course, what would be the disadvantage of starting that clock today?
Yeah, so what we would do is if we get authorization, we'd try to time it with when we think that building is gonna be up or down, essentially timing it to when it comes down, if it were to come down. That's the reason for certifying this one only. The other buildings, you'd wait for sure. But the clock doesn't start on the certification, it starts on the building coming down. So we do have a window when this report is valid, which is that couple of year, 3-year window of validity on the report. And then once the building's down, you have 3 years to kind of cash in on the.
So if you had a 3-year window on validity, if you could get a 3-year window on validity, and then building comes down,
No,
or I'm just thinking
yeah.
worst case scenario, and then it starts a clock for another 3 window, we got a 6-year window here, potentially.
Well, right, but that 3-year clock, it starts immediately upon the building coming down.
Right.
Yeah. So the second
Kind of what
clock-
happened when we took the gas
Correct.
station down.
Correct.
And then we couldn't extend that, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
We
Well,
couldn't-
we tried to get legislation, and there
Right.
was too much going on, and they didn't. I still don't think at the end of the day we couldn't get that, but because I know other EDAs have been able to get that. Now bigger EDAs, right? Like Rochester got it, and Duluth got it, but I still think you get it. Either way, we would want to wait as long as you could to do the certification of the building until you knew if it were for sure coming down. We just said, hey, let's go to EDA. If EDA is comfortable, we could get authorization subject to knowing that timing rather than having to come back at some point.
Well, and the piece that concerns me on this, we go back to summer, early fall of last year. Council gave clear direction to staff of what to do with the white building. And we've continually dragged our feet on that in the hopes of tying it to something and keep saying, well, they're bringing something next week, next month. Here we are, 16 months later, with no guarantee, and frankly, tomorrow's gonna come and go, and you know that there's not gonna be anything. Why aren't we implementing what council, why isn't staff implementing what council gave as direction last fall?
That is to
Well,
impose
to be-
the.
That's
Sorry.
the elephant in the room here. We have a
Because the
substandard
de-
building that is sitting there with a hole in the roof, and we're not doing anything about it.
While we're trying to develop the property. So, I mean, that 3-year window starts as soon as that building comes down. And so the more time you can buy on that, the more likely you are to be able to have the mechanisms to actually get that development to occur. I mean, I have strong concerns that if we don't have that TIF redevelopment district, that you're not gonna get the development that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really all it is we're trying to give the city the most tools to be able to redevelop that site. And we've talked about redevelopment TIF is just so much broader
And play that out, the redevelopment TIF, if the white building wasn't included, would not be able to exist, or it would be harder, or it would be more challenging?
well, it would be more challenging. It's not to say that you can't redevelop the city's property without that building. It would definitely be more challenging, obviously, in talking, looking at all the scenarios. Kind of makes sense that it's included, but that doesn't mean it has to be included in the redevelopment. But the building itself does have to be included in the TIF district. It does have a place in the TIF district, and that clock starts if we take it down. So it is this kind of hurry up, wait, right? We had a developer who was gung ho. They pulled out at the end of the year. We had another developer who said, I can pick this up and take it. We said, we'll give you a shot. We thought that group did spend some money, unlike the other group. That group actually engaged an architect, went through some more process, and then I don't think I think it's the capital. It's coming up with the initial downstroke on the investment. The group that they had put together didn't have enough, I think, behind it to make that happen with the interest rate change, so they wanted to bring in another investment group. That's at least how I understood the conversation. We had a lot of meetings with them, but you're right. We keep breaking this off in 12 months increments, which is not what we'd like to do on that.
And which is why we're bringing this now, is that we're trying to get a plan so that we can, we want to enforce on the building. Clearly it's in very poor condition, but how do we not mess up our future plans for redeveloping that downtown when we do that? So it's, can we certify the building? What is it? How aggressive can we get with marketing this property so that we're kind of ready to go and there's not this sort of hurry up and wait, dilly-dally, like it's here's the program, who wants it? And move as fast as we can.
Am I supposed to read anything into, on the 14th of November, we're having an EDA meeting in which you're looking for direction to spend some money on something. And on the 15th of November, tomorrow, we're supposed to have information from that investment group on if they're moving forward or not moving forward. Am I to read anything into the fact that depending on what we do here today will determine what they do tomorrow?
Yeah, no, they don't even know we're meeting tonight. And what we were saying, just strategy-wise from the staff level, was we're going to do this TIF certification at some point if we proceed either with the building demolition, kind of what council directed the staff to do a year ago, over 16 months ago. It's gonna be required. So we're either gonna do it then, or we're gonna have a developer in place and we're gonna do it at that point. And so getting it certified one way or the other, it doesn't hurt, because we have to do it.
But the polite way to do it would be for the developer to purchase the building and tear it down themselves.
Right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice?
And then we'd still do the certification, though,
Right.
So as far as the TIF piece, we'd be doing it anyway. And that's what we were saying, is it could save us a month in terms of getting back in front of the EDA, depending on how this timing shakes out. But you're right. We're supposed to hear from the developer tomorrow. That's tied to a purchase agreement date, it's not a city date. And so this meeting was just kind of, we didn't want to wait another month to find out tomorrow that we're not doing something and then come back to you, so.
And in answer to one of the questions you had about marketing this to someone else and what type of development you want in there, I think we can be purists as an EDA or a council and say we'd like to see A, B, or C, but in reality, the marketplace is going to tell us what A, B, or C is. So until some developer comes to us and says, here's what I'm gonna do, we can't react to that. Because I've seen everything in the 11 or 12 years I've been here, from we're gonna have donut shops to housing to there. And I have a real hard time, Mark, figuring out that if somebody can't make a housing at market rate go, how they're ever gonna do it with affordable housing.
Tax.
Even though I'd like
Yeah,
to.
with
Tax
tax.
breaks.
There's some tax breaks.
Yeah, that's why. So there's groups who know how to work that piece of it that helps them buy down the costs and still get the returns they want on their investment.
And my
But-
guess is that somebody been interested in doing something like that, they'd be sitting here, because we have no tie to any developer right now. It's a wide open field down there.
It is, although when people call, we say we have, when we were active with the last developer, we've been saying we're active on that site. And so, I mean, people are generally respectful of another group trying to get a deal done, so.
But how long have you been telling any potential developer that we don't have an active developer?
Well, I haven't, right? So, but, like, there's a big group, I'm not gonna name them, but there's a big group, there's a guy, he's out of Rockford, but he works for a big apartment developer, multifamily developer, he drives through here every day, and he pings me every 2 to 3 months saying, hey, what's going on with that property? So he's seen the plans, he's looked at it, he wasn't in a perfect position to jump on it, but he's super interested in it, it's local for him. So that's like one of the people I talked to, and he's like, just keep me in the loop, let me know what's gonna happen, or, And so we had a group, then we didn't have a group, then we had a group. But I think what we're trying to say too, and to your point, Mike, I totally appreciate that, and I agree with you, because I've seen every proposal come through here. And so maybe somebody's got something better. It seems like this is a marketable project from everything we've said. So we'd like to at least, most people are saying, what does the city want? People like to know what the city wants. Well, we want a mixed use development, right? I mean, we want some retail, some office, but if we were gonna put some marketing out there, we have some really good numbers and kind of data on this type of development. So if there wasn't an objection to it, we would just kind of paint that picture as this is a feasible
Mark, then
project.
give us a path that allows the possibility to stay open of things, but gets rid of the blight that's downtown with that building. What's the path?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're talking about, we have to get somebody to engage in developing it.
That could be years.
So.
Do I have to accept the blight for those years
No.
in order to get that?
No, this path that we're painting tonight it's buying us a 3-year window, and we're gonna have to decide that, just like we did with the gas station, we're gonna have to say it's worth it to us to get that site scraped, rather than leave the, kind
Well,
of
and
bad
in all
buildings up.
honesty here, I either want that building repaired to be usable or taken down. I'm not willing, at least my one vote would be not to wait for years and years and accept a building that is deteriorating, not improving.
Yeah, which is essentially what we're trying to work that in, but also, again, kind of recognize that starts this 3-year window. And in that, as part of that recognition, try to figure out how we can move things forward faster, because the way that we've been going and the looking at different, not that we wouldn't entertain other projects, we're not gonna lock up the site. We're gonna, hear the things that we've already discussed, that council and EDA have been sort of generally comfortable with. We think that we can move this through, relatively quickly.
But even Clarissa, if a new developer came in tomorrow, started doing things, realistically, they're not constructing anything until '24. There's no way you're gonna get anything at the pace that things have moved on other developments. You're talking '24, maybe '25. what do we do with that building for 3 years?
No, we're saying certify it, take it down.
Yeah.
But again, recognizing that that starts the 3-year window. And so
Right.
we've got, if we know that putting everything together takes a full year, now we've got 2 years to aggressively market and make sure that we close on a deal.
But on the same token, by starting that clock, I mean, this is, I know I've overused the moving the goalposts too many times, but this thing has just been a pinball machine of, we've had proposals and, we had a market rate analysis and one that had subsidized housing in it, and we evaluated and we determined this way. Now all of a sudden we could be back to, subsidized housing, and I mean,
Okay, that's part of the problem, though. The affordable housing TIF district does not necessarily mean subsidized. And so we shut down that option so quickly
Yeah.
without considering that it doesn't have to be subsidized housing. It just has to be affordable within a certain percentage of the poverty rate in Minnesota. And so we don't have to be subsidizing housing, nor does necessarily the developer. There's a thing called non-market housing where they're just not out to make millions in profit off of the housing. And I don't know if that's what that one developer you mentioned is interested in, but I personally don't want to pay $5,000 given how frequently we've moved past deadlines. I get that the redevelopment TIF district is easier, but there's always the option of an affordable housing TIF district. And so, and we need affordable housing in this community. We need it. So I would only approve, I personally would not approve the certification unless we have it tied to a development going. Just because we keep, I want to be hopeful, but we've passed, to your point, too many deadlines. And so to me, because there's always the option of the affordable housing TIF district, I say certify only if a developer says, yep, let's do it. And if not, let's knock it down.
wow. So is there a benefit to doing, is there a benefit to not seeking the certification at this point? Waiting until you hear tomorrow that they're not moving forward and then soliciting potential offers from developers to find out what they might be able to put together for us in the next 60 days? I mean, what is there a downside to that?
Just from time. I mean, I guess what we're looking at is, and it's a totally different discussion, right? That the council is going to have, not the EDA, on that building. There's a different kind of action occurring on that, so you're going to have to make that decision. We're asking the EDA to give us the ability to do a $3,900 certification in the event that the council says it takes action on the building piece.
But by the way, did EDA all get noticed on them? Okay.
Well, you
'Cause
said
we're,
Adam.
we're just dealing with
You
council.
You said you
Yeah.
heard from Adam
Adam's out of town.
Okay,
and
So I
Jack
didn't hear from Jack.
okay.
at all.
Jack might have got south. He was
I was
smart.
wondering that if he's already went through.
You were saying, Mark, that council needs to make a decision of what to do with the building.
Right.
Council's already made a decision of what to do with the building. That
Well-
doesn't need to be talked about anymore, does it?
Well, right. I don't know what the official action is. There was a wait option,
Well,
right?
Right, there was kind of a wait option, and we were trying to get this deal going. But we're very clear on that the council wants the building down. And it, to John's question about is there a benefit to leaving it up? I mean, it extends that 3-year window, so there's that benefit. There's pros and
Which-
cons to both. So
We had the public hearing on September 27th of 2021, so.
Yeah, and so in the event that we proceed now that if the purchase agreement falls through on this deal and we don't have a development, then you're gonna proceed with your previous action. And that's gonna take the building down, and then we're saying, if that happens, should we certify prior so that you reserve the option? That's really all you're doing is reserving, so, and you have to invest in that $3,900, but it reserves and keeps the TIF open. Without that building, we didn't see an avenue for the site that we were trying to redevelop to make it go together.
But we just boxed ourselves into a 36-month
Correct.
window.
But you're doing that either way, right? You're either gonna get rid of it altogether, or you're gonna buy 36 months. So it's either, and I mean, I appreciate your point, Caitlin. I mean, you could just say, we don't care, and we're just gonna focus on housing redevelopment. But to Mike's point, if somebody else came in with a great proposal, we wouldn't be able to utilize the redevelopment tool. In that case, we'd be stuck. And it is, I mean, with as difficult as it is to develop these properties, having more tools is better than less is what, I mean, we know that.
So EDA approves $3,950 in the case that council approves to go ahead with the demolition of the building. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. So then, when would the agenda item be put on a city council agenda for the demolition of the building?
I don't need approval for the demolition of the building.
That was already approved last-
Right, we're ready to
We'll
go.
get a developer tomorrow.
If we're ready to go,
That's
if
gonna happen.
EDA is comfortable, certifying or not certifying, to Caitlin's point, then it is what it is, and we'll move on that.
It's not to exceed 3,900 is what or the proposal is, if there was direction on that.
Why is the 39 a EDA decision, not a council decision?
The EDA has money.
But we don't have any
The
authorization.
EDA is the
to
one who
spend
would
it.
ultimately do the TIF certification though, right? I mean, it's,
It would
the
come through
EDA's
this
doing.
body.
Yeah, I mean, the EDA was the one who was entering into the sale contracts and.
So we'd have to recommend to ourselves
You're
that we
right.
do
Yeah.
this.
You're right.
Especially with Adam and Chuck out here.
Which is why I asked, where are the other two?
I know.
I mean, it appears unless there's a miracle tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean,
We
feeling
don't
good
have a
about that.
development. We're done kicking the can down the road about forced to replace or take that down. That's gonna start our 3-year clock. The 3,900 would give us an additional tool sometime in that 3-year window.
Correct.
That's
It re-
how I'm reading
It
it.
reserves the right
Yeah.
to utilize that tool.
Would that certification delay the taking down or repair of that building?
I think we could do it within 3 to 4 weeks, so.
Okay.
What's the EDA's current budget?
Budget.
Or
Technically, I don't know that the EDA has a budget. We have.
Mark just said we had money.
That's different than a budget.
We had, roughly $100,000.
Yeah, we've got
Okay.
money.
Yeah.
It's in a line item somewhere, I saw it.
You have a fund.
Yeah.
right?
All right, well, I'm open to certification, but if I have to come back here as a citizen in 3 years.
You'll be back on council by then.
I think it's wise to be open to the certification.
Mhm.
It gives us more
More options.
opportunity and options. I also think we need to balance the concerns that we've been hearing from residents, in particular business owners, and that this has been going on for over a year. People been being told it's going to be taken care of, and it hasn't. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at with my thoughts.
So do the certification and tear down the building.
So, sorry.
we keep saying tear down the building.
It's
Our
repair or
direction is
replace.
to the owner, fix it, or we're gonna take it down. So, let's be clear,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So do we need a motion
motion.
then
Yeah,
for
motion-
approval
Motion
to-
recommending approval of the
Rec-
$3,900.
What's
Yeah,
your gut
to
gonna
not
happen
exceed the
tomorrow?
30.
Gonna get nothing.
I don't think they've got the people excited about this deal right this second. I mean, they've been trying to get it put together, but
I mean, they are really interested. I imagine they would try and extend their purchase agreement, I mean, to buy more time. And that's kind of that, we're not kicking them out. They're certainly welcome to continue this negotiation, but we also need to hop on that second path.
Right.
to
And
keep
tomorrow,
moving.
you'll be able to do that tomorrow.
that's
Formally.
what we understand is their purchase agreement deadline is tomorrow. They have another piece that they have a timer on their purchase agreement.
Other questions or discussion? I think that, oh,
No, I'm just thinking about how we have other people kicking the tires. Is it worth bringing them in on the discussion?
Yes.
Because I feel like we stay exclusive and then our exclusive developers leave us and we're back at the start. So is it worth bringing in more?
Yeah, I think our plan, staff, would be let's go out and cast a wider net
Okay.
and see what we
Hurry
get.
up and wait.
and we
at
haven't been
this point.
signed with it, I mean, to be
No.
clear for anyone, we haven't been with
In a
a
long time.
signed developer
Mhm.
for years.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, it has been open.
And there's been
we've been
months
trying to be
spanning
flexible.
between these goalposts, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
They present this, and then we don't hear anything for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and 2 months.
Now, in that time, I will say, we've done a lot of work. We've done the
Right.
environmental
Mhm.
updates. We've done the MnDOT piece. Or, I don't know, that's final, though. We know that we have it. So we've gotten some pieces. We've also looked at the city hall side, what kind of space, right? These were all unknowns that were, hey, we talked about the library piece. We know the library's not there today. So we have a lot more information now to be able to present to people with, I think, some really hard kind of facts to say, here's what this thing is, here's where we are, we have the information now. That's helpful. When we're doing these deals out here, the more everything's put together, the more likely we're gonna get somebody to pick it off a shelf. Developers want easy. They don't want complicated things where they got all these moving pieces. It makes it more complicated.
tricky.
So.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with margins like we are here, and remember, I mean, we keep hearing this, we know this, just doing development out here. It costs you the same to build a building in Maple Plain as it does in St. Louis Park, but your rents are 15% less, 20% less. So all things equal, that's what you're dealing with, right? So developers are trying to find the deals that have the highest return for the same cost.
But development going in Long Lake, development going in,
Right.
in
Delano.
Delano, Rockford, Mound, I mean,
Yep.
we're all at the same price points, so I mean,
No, right. It's just harder. It's just fewer deals.
got it.
So I think the general consensus that I'm hearing then is that we'd be looking for a motion to not exceed the $3,900 for the certification. Is that correct? Does anyone want to make that motion? I can make the motion. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Cahill. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions on the motion to not exceed the $3,900 for certification? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Anything else staff needs from us regarding the downtown development and the 5210 Main Street?
Good? Okay, see what we can come up with.
Anything
Sorry,
you need?
5210.
Yeah.
Yes.
for ED.
You wanna go into the 5210?
Are you closing?
We, council, staff would request that we close the meeting in order to discuss an idea for that site.
Okay. Minnesota statute 13D.05 sub 3C allows meetings to be closed to develop or consider offer for the purchase of real property. The EDA will be convening to a closed session to discuss the development of an offer for the purchase of that property located at 5210 Main Street East in Maple Plain. With that being said, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
Second.
second by Fay. Any further discussion? All right, we will be going into closed session at 7:41. We will turn.
There's gonna be another
It is.
32.
Right, we are out of closed session at 8:04 PM. Thank you, where we discussed the 5210 Main Street building. Right, next item is the other business. I just wanted to ask, there were minutes in our packet from September 13th. Were you looking for a motion to approve those?
Oh.
They were in the
yes.
packet, but not on the agenda.
Yes, yes,
Part
we
of the-
were. Missed that on the agenda, huh?
Adopt the agenda? No?
It wasn't
It's
on
not
our
our
agenda.
agenda.
Oh.
They
So
were in
I
the
put it
packet.
under other business, because they were in the packet. Did everyone have a
They were,
chance to
or we
review them?
can put them on December
You
if
wanna put 'em
that's
on?
easier.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Either way.
Do you
Okay.
feel ready to do that, or you want them on December?
No. We can move them.
What?
We can move them.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the September 13th EDA meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
What just happened there?
there was a motion
To approve the minutes
made
in the
to
packet.
approve the September 13
Okay.
minutes from the EDA meeting that are in the packet. Moved by Francis, looking for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Fay. Any further discussion or questions? All in
Yeah.
favor of approving the minutes? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes were approved 5-0. Any other business this evening to come before the EDA? Hearing none, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Moved by DeLuca,
Second.
second by Cahill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The EDA meeting's adjourned at 8:06.